Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. We've got a full slate of updates to cover for you today. This is the 110th episode of Hawks Latest presented by FanArt, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ride. Preseason is almost concluded. We still got one more game to go, but after that, it's the regular season, and it's going to be consistent updates from here on out on this channel. But last night, the Hawks played their first home preseason game, one of only two that they're going to get of the year, and it was a fun one. I enjoyed it. I was there. It was a fun time. It was a good game, despite resting nearly all of their regular rotation players. I mean, literally almost all of them. It was a very deep into the rotation. Atlanta went, but they still managed to pull off a dramatic 119-118 overtime win over the Miami Heat, who played their pretty much their regular rotation. So this was the College Park Skyhawks versus the Miami Heat. I'm not even exaggerating either. I mean, Tyler Hero was obviously out. And I'm about to break it all down in just a second. But it was a game that really gave fans a glimpse into the future of the organization. From rookies like Asa Newell to hungry players with something to prove like Lamont Butler, who really showed out in this previous game, and Caleb Houston, who hit the game winner and had a stellar performance. In this video, we're going to break it all down. We're going to start with the recap of the game, take a closer look at some of the key performances from certain guys, and talk about what these results mean heading into the Hawks preseason finale against Houston on Thursday. The Rockets, who they played in that first preseason game and are going to take them on in the final preseason game. Pretty poetic way to end the preseason and then head into the regular season where Atlanta Hawks fans have super huge expectations. So without further ado, let's waste no more time and go ahead and jump right into it and talk about how the Atlanta Hawks entered last night's game against the Miami Heat with an almost entirely new lineup. So Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, Zachary Riezichet, Kristaps Porzingis, all the new guys, even Luke Kennard, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, even rotation guys, Mo Gay, and everyone was out. They all sat out, and it gave fans a real chance to see some of the organization's younger players in action. I know Hawks fans were kind of expecting the main rotation guys, the starters, to play, just considering it was the not the home opener, but the first home game technically of the season. So you would think, maybe a couple of them would suit up, but they didn't. It was a full bench unit. The starting lineup looked more like something you'd expect in College Park than at State Farm Arena ever. But honestly, it was pretty cool. The starting five was Keaton Wallace, Vit Krejci, Jacob Toppin, Asa Newell, and Nafali Dante. Meanwhile, Miami, however, rolled out a lineup that could closely resemble their opening night rotation. Featuring guys like Bam Adebayo, Khalil Ware, new addition Norman Powell, who they got in that three-team trade that sent former Hawk John Collins to the Los Angeles Clippers, and then they got Norman Powell, and I think it was like the Jazz that were involved. They got like Kevin Love and a few other pieces. Tyler Hero sat out due to injury, so he's the only guy that really will be in their starting lineup that didn't play in this game. And despite the talent disparity on paper, I mean, obviously you would think going into this, if you look at these lineups, that the Miami Heat would pretty much cruise to a victory. But that was not the case. The Miami Heat are actually, after this loss to the Atlanta Hawks, they are 0-5 in preseason. They have one more game, but I'm not saying it's time to panic in Miami, but that's really bad. Losing to a team that is literally playing like their bottom 7 guys. Atlanta came out swinging, though, and it was a very good start. Keaton Wallace and Vit Krejci, the two of the starters in yesterday's game, really ignited the offense early, just creating on all cylinders, using crisp ball movement and transition play to build momentum. Keaton Wallace was listed as that starting point guard, but early on, a lot of the offense was running through Krejci, and it was producing good results. Atlanta knows what Vit Krejci can do, and they didn't really go into it expecting, Vit Krejci to do anything really different, but his shot volume was pretty high, and it was working out. He was seriously playing well. Lamont Butler, who officially signed earlier in the day to that Exhibit 10 deal, and I'm going to break down at the end of the video two of the other guys that we aren't really familiar with. We've talked about Lamont Butler on several occasions at this channel because there's been an interesting storyline with him this summer and with the Atlanta Hawks, and so we're going to have a whole segment about that in just a minute. But he entered midway through the first quarter, and when he checked in, he made an immediate impact. I mean, it really stood out, the difference from Atlanta's offense from when he wasn't on the court from when he was on the court. He made his presence felt very quickly with a steal and a quick trigger corner three, setting the tone for really the rest of the night. It was a great game for him, a great first impression for Hawks fans who are unfamiliar with his game. The second quarter followed kind of a similar pattern, but I mean it was a little more sloppy, and Atlanta didn't score a whole lot. Their hustle and energy on loose balls stood out, and even as their inexperience led to some sloppy turnovers, they still were able to produce some quality minutes. Despite that, though, Asa Newell kept the offense alive with a few timely buckets. I mean, he really got it going after a rough start where he was letting it fly from deep, but he's a rookie. He's playing in an interesting role right now, and you can't really count the missed shots as how to project his future. It really just matters the looks he's getting. Those are going to fall. He wasn't great from 3-point range in last night's win, but he was still a very impactful player. Atlanta doesn't win the game without him. He kept the offense alive, and the teams actually went into halftime tied at 54 apiece. In the second half, Lamont Butler, the guy we just talked about, he took over as point guard. So he started the second half, and he helped the Hawks reclaim control of the game, and they didn't really lose control of the game. His confidence as a ball handler and a defender was impressive. I mean, he's known for his defense, and the young Hawks forced a 24-second a shot clock violation. Why did I say 24-second violation? But it was midway through the third, and it was a perfect example of their defensive intensity. I mean, these guys were playing like they had something to prove, and they really do have something to prove. I mean, they're playing really hard because this is their shot. For some of these guys, it's their shot at an NBA deal. Heading into the fourth, Atlanta led 76-70 with Jacob Toppin beginning to heat up offensively. He wasn't very effective in the beginning part of the game, but he really just got it going as the game went on, and he ended up being one of the guys that really helped Atlanta seal the deal. He was awesome in that second half and really that fourth quarter. However, the team's shooting struggles from deep kept things close. Both teams really kind of were terrible from beyond the arc. I mean, Atlanta got off to that hot start from three, but it certainly wasn't any consistency throughout the game. The Hawks shot below 30% from three on high volume throughout the night, allowing the Heat to hang around. With under a minute left, and that's obviously why Atlanta's 3-point tendencies are just a lot higher than Miami's in general, and so their offense certainly revolves around their 3-point shot making more than Miami's does. So even though both teams were shooting terribly, it was kind of a thing where it just impacted Atlanta more. But with under a minute left, Atlanta led 102-100, but they couldn't close it out in regulation. Miami called a timeout, and they were able to get a good look, and they knocked it down, and so it went into overtime, and it was a pretty exciting overtime period. In the extra frame, the Hawks showed grit. They honestly just wanted it more because they had gone down in overtime, but it didn't matter. The resiliency was there, and it was awesome to see from a very young group, a very young, inexperienced group. And it was Caleb Houston, actually, on an Exhibit 10 contract, fighting for a roster spot with the Atlanta Hawks in the 2025 season, who hit that game-winning three-pointer to seal a 119-118 win for Atlanta. While, the attendance wasn't very high in this game, that was certainly one of the most empty nights I've seen in State Farm Arena in a very long time. It makes sense. It was a Monday night, and there was a Falcons game going on next door, and it also was an early tip-off, so I understand why there wasn't a whole lot of people there. But despite all of that, it was a pretty loud crowd pop when Caleb Houston hit that three. It just got me, just ready for regular season basketball, because a lot of Atlanta Hawks games, and as you all know, they go down to the wire, and it seems like more than any other team in the NBA. So it's going to be a super exciting regular season. But yeah, shout out to Caleb Houston, who we're actually going to talk about in this next segment. He was one of the night's biggest stories, and it wasn't just the game winner. He finished with 21 points. He went 5 for 8 from deep, including that game-winning triple. He also added 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and a block in 33 minutes. So, he did come off the bench in the game, but he was featured very heavily throughout the game. He played some of the most minutes on the team. His efficiency from beyond the arc is really what stood out, but he was impactful in several other, areas of the game, especially considering his role as a bench scorer with this team right now. The 22-year-old forward was recently signed to an Exhibit 10 deal after the Orlando Magic declined his 4th-year option, which was really kind of a confusing decision. just personally, me judging the Orlando Magic's offseason, I didn't really get why they just declined Houston's option. He's a promising young player who is a stellar shooter and has improved from three in each of his three NBA seasons. Over his 58 games last season with the Orlando Magic, Houston averaged 4 points and 13 minutes per game while shooting 40% from deep, which was a new career high. And I actually asked him about that at media day, and he what did he do? He praised Atlanta's spacing, and he's just talking about how happy he is to just be in a new situation that really benefits his game. And I couldn't agree more. I think this is a great situation for him, and I'm really excited to see him maybe get that roster spot because he's on the Exhibit 10 deal. But it's exactly the kind of player Atlanta's been looking for. We've brought in certain specialists, and Caleb Houston certainly is a shooting specialist. But he brings so much size at that position, and so it's like, his defensive limitations are there. I mean, he's not a great defender, but this is a guy who can knock down the three at a very high rate, and due to his size, he can't be too bad of a defender. We're gonna get him that first career dunk too. That's also a hilarious stat. I mean, he's 6'8" and he's one of like 2 active NBA players that haven't had a dunk. I forgot the exact stat, but it's him and Trae Young in whatever that exact stat is. I mean, given the Hawks' current roster construction, after this performance, Houston may have just played his way into one of the final 2 roster spots before the regular season begins. If he continues to space the floor and make smart decisions off the bench, and we'll see it in this final preseason game against the Houston Rockets on Thursday. Expect the Hawks front office to give him a serious look at a standard contract. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people figured that when it was rumored that the Hawks were bringing in Caleb Houston in general, that first report, but I think it was by like Mike Scotto. A lot of people were like, okay, this is, he reported that it was a 1-year deal. So we were assuming, standard NBA deal. This is a young guy who fits Atlanta's timeline and provides a skill at a certain weakness that the team had in the prior season. But it turned out to be an Exhibit 10, and that was a big shock, honestly, because it was weird because it was reported that they had signed him, and then like over a month had passed, and we just heard nothing about it, and he wasn't on the official roster, and then they eventually announced that Exhibit 10 deal, yada yada yada. But he seriously may have played himself into an actual contract, and he's not the only one last night that might have played himself into an actual NBA contract. Let's talk about Lamont Butler, the player who may have had the most surprising performance of the night and really of the preseason. And honestly, it's not surprising in just the fact that his game didn't show that he could potentially have a night like this. But Hawks fans just don't really know who he is because, while it was reported that they had signed him this offseason, that eventually fell through. But Atlanta brought him in actually just hours before tip-off on an Exhibit 10 deal, and he wasted no time proving he belonged. In last night's game, he recorded 18.6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 37 minutes. It's another instance of, he didn't start for Atlanta, really because he just got with the team. But he made a real impact, and he couldn't really stay off the floor for too long because he was doing a great job generating offense for the Hawks. He filled the stat sheet. I mean, he really did. And, Butler, a 5-year college veteran from San Diego State, made a name for himself as a defense-first guard, famously leading the Aztecs to that 2023 national championship game. His defensive energy translated immediately to the NBA floor, and that was one of the biggest takeaways really from his first appearance on the floor for the Hawks last night. I mean, he was everywhere. Right when he checked into the game, I think he got a steal almost immediately. He was picking pockets. He's contesting shots and making crisp passes in transition. I mean, just looked like a very polished player. I mean, there were certainly some mistakes. I mean, turnovers were a factor, but offensively, Butler was very impressive. And this is kind of a very notable development because he's known as that defensive stopper, and that's the reputation he built in college. But, I mean, along with that, this was a much more polished offensive game than I had expected. I mean, one of the guys that was near me at last night's game, I mean, he was talking about how, he was a Kentucky fan. And this is a defensive guy, and so the just the real skill that he showed offensively was surprising, at least to me, after watching Butler's tape and when it was first reported that Atlanta was bringing him in. He ran the pick and roll with poise. He looked pretty good in that. He even knocked down 3 of his 7 attempts from three. So I mean, that's good efficiency. I mean, this is a technical NBA debut. And with that comes growing pains, of course. But 5 turnovers, like I mentioned earlier, the turnovers, and there were some struggles, finishing at the rim. But the upside is clear. Butler looks like an NBA caliber guard, and he could develop into one as we really go into the season, and whether that's with Atlanta in the future or not. This looks like a guy who's going to develop nicely. He just needs to adjust to the pace of the game, and that's something that'll come with time. He showed real promise. The Hawks are still searching for kind of a long-term backup point guard. It's been a very interesting topic of conversation this summer, just especially since the Kobe Buffkin trade and where Atlanta's going to go with that. Anzi Saleh, the general manager of the Hawks, has preached optionality and said that when he was with Golden State, they didn't have a traditional point guard behind Steph Curry, so they've kind of committed to that philosophy of backup point guards are going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard. While not traditional point guards, they possess a lot of ball handling and shot creation skills that will effectively be able to lead a second unit. And Keaton Wallace has gotten a lot of run in preseason as Atlanta's 9th man, so we could be seeing a lot of Wallace minutes, but Butler's name should absolutely be in the conversation to maybe be brought up on a two-way. I certainly like that idea. I am pro using the final 2 roster spots on Caleb Houston, signing him to an official deal, and then converting Keaton Wallace's two-way contract to a standard contract. I think that would be a very valuable way because then if you keep Keaton Wallace on a two-way, you can only use him for a certain amount of games in the regular season, and it's clear Atlanta kind of looks like they want to include him in the main rotation heading into the season, which I wouldn't have guessed would be the reality just a few weeks ago. But they featured him a lot in preseason. And then, with Keaton Wallace moving from a two-way contract to a standard contract, that would open up a two-way slot. And I think Lamont Butler should seriously be considered for that. So even if he doesn't make Atlanta's final roster, because we get 3 two-ways, another team or the College Park Skyhawks will be eager to give him a shot. And I mean, regardless, he'll spend some time with College Park because Atlanta has his G League rights. But regardless, let's move on to the final segment and talk about, alongside Butler, because it was reported that they had signed all these guys to Exhibit 10 deals. The Hawks announced 2 other Exhibit 10 signings before the game. It wasn't just Butler. They signed MJ Walker and Davon Smith. So Walker, who was a former Florida State standout, he brings experience and toughness. I mean, he's played over 130 games in the G League, averaging 10.5 points and 2 NBA appearances under his belt. The Jonesboro native is a familiar face in Georgia basketball circles, and this was a great homecoming opportunity for him to prove that he belongs in the league conversation. Davon Smith, on the other hand, is a name that Hawks fans might recognize from Summer League. We have a little bit of familiarity with him. While not a lot, if y'all watched Summer League, y'all were able to see his game a little bit. The Decatur native played for Atlanta and Las Vegas, showing flashes as a versatile playmaker, just a guy who could, at some point in his career, be a contributor off the bench. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Just based off of what I saw in Summer League. Smith had a long college journey. I mean, he played at Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, Utah, and St. John's, and he's known for his athleticism and floor vision. I mean, like Walker, Smith is expected to see time in College Park. The Skyhawks are going to have a fun team this year. I'm excited to go to a few of those games. I think that's going to be really entertaining to keep up with, just kind of as a side thing with the Hawks season, which is going to be even more exciting. Preseason minutes, could be vital in showing that he's more than just a future G League contributor. But for both Smith and Walker, both guards give the Hawks, intriguing developmental options and strengthen the pipeline between the main roster and the Skyhawks. Which it's been going for years. The Skyhawks have a very, very good developmental program, and that's been on full display with the success of guys like Jalen Johnson and Vit Krejci. But yeah, it's going to be exciting for the Skyhawks and the Hawks this year. But yeah, both of these guys, maybe they'll get some run on Thursday when Atlanta plays their final game of the preseason against the Houston Rockets. I think Kevin Durant's playing the rest of the preseason. So if the Rockets are playing some of their starters and KD, I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta was like, okay, let's keep the legs fresh heading into the regular season. We don't want these guys to be too rusty. Maybe we'll play them for like a quarter. Referring to for like the starters, and I'm not saying all the starters are going to play, but it would be good to maybe keep like Trey and KP in there just to continue developing chemistry. So last night's win was more than just another preseason game. I mean, this was a young team who was hungry. It was a statement from Atlanta's young prospects, if you will, players who are fighting for their place in the NBA. And that's why they ended up beating Miami, because they wanted it more. And it's clear why. I mean, they had stuff to prove. And they certainly proved, some of these guys really proved they belonged. Jacob Toppin looked confident as a scorer and a playmaker. Asa Newell continued to impress as a high motor forward with a lot of potential, and he's making it clear why Atlanta was very comfortable trading back to get him. And N'Faly Dante, and we haven't talked about him a lot in this episode, but he looked great on the boards, and so did Charles Bassey. I mean, both of them really kind of anchored the paint with energy and rim protection. So the Hawks may have rested their starters, but they didn't rest their effort in any way whatsoever. The organization's depth and their player development pipeline, they're on full display. A lot of things are going great for the Atlanta Hawks right now, and I hope that carries into the regular season. They now improved to 2-1 in preseason play, and they will wrap things up. The final preseason game is on Thursday against the Houston Rockets, so it should be a fun one. It's going to be at home once again. As we move close to the regular season, these performances could have a big impact on who ends up making the final roster and who heads to College Park. For now, though, one takeaway is simple. This was a night of promise, hustle, and a real glimpse into the Atlanta Hawks' future. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on Hawks Latest. We're going to be pumping out videos every single day, keeping you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. But let me know in the comments what you thought of last night's preseason win against the Miami Heat. Certainly a lot of promising performances from the guys. So let me know your thoughts down below, and also expectations heading into not just this final preseason game against the Houston Rockets, but the regular season and opening night on October 22nd against the Toronto Raptors. Once again, thank you guys for watching. My name is Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and I'll see you guys next time.